is a complex undertaking, which at times will be marked by major contradictions between those who represent change and those who seek to defend the status quo. The ANC manifesto, which constitutes a binding contract between the African National Congress and the people of South Africa, outlines 6 priorities. Madam Speaker, I'm delighted to see that the State of the Nation address delivered by President Ramaphosa has effectively taken on board these and therefore now placed them as priorities of the democratic state. This Parliament will ensure that both the President and his government are accountable to the implementation of these priorities. Of greatest significance in this regard is the fact that the ANC, as the principal lead of the National Democratic Revolution, has an absolute and a binding obligation to defend the correctness of the policies, the policy perspective against our detractors, both domestically as well as internationally. Madam Speaker, almost 8 years ago in 2017, commenting on President Donald Trump's elections, one Dr. Shongwe in KwaZulu-Natal pointed to what he defined as a culture of narcissism. The African National Congress fully supports your decision, Comrade President, to have a delegation that will visit not only Washington but other capitals of the world to seek to persuade them into correctness of the position and the perspective of the African National Congress. And perhaps to qualify this point, let me quote what the President of the ANC, Nkosi Albert Luthuli, said, that if the Charter is examined, it will be seen that freedom means the opening of the opportunities to all South Africans to live full and abundant lives in terms of the country, the community, and individuals. Thank you very much.
The next speaker on the speakers list is the Leader of the Opposition, Honorable Hlophe.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces. Thank you very much. We promised the nation that we will deliver our speech today as an opposition party, and we are about to do just that. We greet the leadership. We greet the leadership of Umkhonto weSizwe and the leadership and the members of the Progressive Caucus present here in Parliament. In all honesty, there is no need to dignify. In all honesty, there is no need to dignify the false and empty promises of President of the so-called Government of National Unity, because throughout his presidency, he has made many commitments and promises which were never fulfilled and will never be fulfilled. Allow us to greet and pay homage to the President of Umkhonto weSizwe, our Commander General, President Jacob Gedleyihlekisa Zuma, uNxamalala. During his tenure as President,
Honorable Hlophe, can you please take your seat? Honorable Member.
Honorable Chair, can you please take in charge of the House?
Can you be on your feet?
The Speaker is been drowning here.
Honorable Member, can you be on your feet? And on what point of order are you raising on? On what rule are you raising on?
Chair, the Speaker has been drowned, please.
Please take your seat, Honorable Member. Your order is not sustained. However, Honorable Member, I understand that there is echo in this House. Please, if we could try our level best to remain silent and allow the speakers to deliver their messages. Thank you very much. Over to you, Honorable Hlophe.
Thank you very much. During his tenure as President and Head of State, President Zuma never told lies. He never claimed easy victories. President Zuma prioritized the work on the ground and delivered the services to our people. We take this opportunity as Umkhonto weSizwe.
Honorable Shope, can you please take your seat? Honorable members, can we please allow the speaker on the podium to debate? Order, honorable members, can we please allow the speaker? Over to you, Honorable Shope.
Thank you. We take this opportunity as Umkhonto weSizwe to state without any fear of doubt or contradictions by all measures and standards, President Jacob Zuma is the most successful president and head of state that South Africa has ever had. We are stating this fact not out of emotions or excitement, but through verified statistical data, which we will summarize in our input today. President Zuma's 9 years as head of state and president of our country was not just 9 wasted years, but was 9 years of progress defined by increasing life expectancy, access to education, and massive infrastructural programs. When President Zuma assumed office in 2009, South Africa's life expectancy was at 50 years, and throughout his leadership of South Africa as head of state, the life expectancy rose to more than 65 years, and that is a fact. Furthermore, there is no doubt that the rise in life expectancy under President Zuma happened due to clear government interventions which included heightened provision of antiretroviral drugs to those infected with HIV and AIDS. The number of HIV and AIDS-related deaths decreased drastically under President Jacob Zuma, and that is a fact. President Jacob Zuma invested in education and is the only president since 1994 to build new universities in provinces that never had universities before. The University of Mpumalanga and Solplaatje University in the Northern Cape happened due to the leadership of President Zuma, and that is the legacy of 9 years of progress we are talking about. In relation to infrastructure, President Zuma is number one when it comes to driving expenditure of education, health care, roads and transport and basic services of infrastructure than any other president in South Africa. It is a fact President Zuma built more hospitals, more roads, and more schools than any other head of state and president in South Africa. That is a fact. It was under President Zuma's presidency that the social protection net was expanded to reduce the devastating levels of poverty and suffering of our people. President Zuma increased the age categories of social grants recipients because he understood that people don't get richer when they get older. As the head of state and the president of South Africa, President Jacob Zuma openly advocated the expropriation of land without compensation. He was failed. President Zuma, was failed by a reactionary and collaborationist parliamentary caucus which frustrated a solid and sound agreement amongst progressive parties to amend Section 25 of the Constitution. In response to Fees Must Fall movement, President Jacob Zuma introduced fee-free education at higher education level. This was frustrated, however, and reversed by the administration that took over after his removal from office. We can throw statistical data on all areas of human development and progress, and we will all come to the same conclusion that the vision held by President Zuma far exceeded the narrow political obsession and persecution which the establishment subjected him to. Because he foresaw and politically knew and understood that South Africa's development and growth path cannot and should not depend on the imperialist and neo-colonial West, President Zuma built far-reaching and sustainable partnerships with countries that have no colonial and neo-colonial aspirations over South Africa and the African continent. It was President Zuma who got South Africa admitted. Yes, it was President Zuma who got South Africa admitted into BRICS. That is Brazil, Russia, China, and South Africa in 2010. And many other countries have since then applied for membership of BRICS. Madam Chair, BRICS amounts to 31% of the global gross domestic product, 41% of the global population, and a significant voice in regional and global political economic affairs. The recent bullying tactics of the United States of America are a clarion call that South Africa should deepen the economic relationships with BRICS plus countries started by President Zuma. We now have in progress BRICS family. We have now, under the BRICS family, we have the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, the United UAE, Islamic Republic of Iran, we have Argentina, we have Egypt, and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, who can be sustainable and dependable trading partners and not bullying of tankers of goods and services produced and made in South Africa. Those are dependable partners. While we expect President Desmond Trump, while we expect President Donald Trump to end the imperialist war of NATO in Russia and to dissociate from the neo-colonial and dishonest so-called green energy, from the so-called green energy transactions imposed on the developing world, we do not agree with him and his promotion of white supremacists who claim they are facing genocide in South Africa. While there is no genocide and there is no threat of genocide in South Africa, let's make that clear. There are, however, legitimate cries of historically and presently oppressed and excluded black majority who demand the return of the land and the wealth to the ownership and control of the people as a whole, and not the privileged few beneficiaries of apartheid and colonialism. That is our demand. Under the leadership of President Zuma, South Africa has since made significant strides in engaging with BRICS partners in an effort to challenge the dominance of the Western countries. Notably, the BRICS bloc has shown interest in creating alternative financial mechanisms, including a potential BRICS currency and multilateral payment systems. Honorable Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, we have an obligation as South Africa to defend our sovereignty and territorial integrity, and in doing so, we should appreciate that our sovereignty as a nation should necessarily include the protection and sovereignty and the territorial integrity of all African countries. As we stated in the matter of urgent debate yesterday, South Africa should never surrender the Democratic Republic of Congo to the rebels because these rebels are funded by foreign role players, including the foreign governments and businesses which use rebels as conduits and militia to loot our natural endowments and wealth. If we run away and surrender DRC to the rebels, they will gain confidence and cause destabilization in the whole of East Africa, and then proceed to Southern Africa like they have already started in Mozambique. We cannot and should never surrender the Democratic Republic of Congo to these dogs. We cannot and should never surrender even 1 inch of Africa's land and wealth to these dogs. We have an elected government in the DRC, and those who seek political power should gain it through democratic means and with the support of the people, and not through the barrel of the gun. Honorable Chairperson, the year 2030 is 5 years from now. 5 years from now, and according to the National Development Plan, which claim is the GNU strategic objective, by the year 2030, you should have achieved the following. 1, NDP Vision 2030 of the so-called GNU says that by year 2030, South Africa should have 6% unemployment rate. And currently unemployment rate at an expanded definition to include discouraged work seekers. It is sitting at the moment at 40% of the population. These are people who have the ability to work but cannot find the jobs. 2, the National Democratic Vision of 2030 of the so-called GNU says that by year 2030, South Africa should have no one living under the poverty line. And currently, more than 40% of South Africans are living under the poverty line. Thirdly, this is part of the vision of the GNU, that by 2030, the so-called Government of National Unity says that by 2030, South Africa should have reduced the highest levels of inequality, yet our country remains the most unequal society in the world. South Africa remains the most unequal society in the world. We now know that the objectives and goals of the National Democratic Vision 2030 will not be achieved because this so-called Government of National Unity is directionless and does not have a common vision or does not have a vision at all.
Honorable Sope, can you please take your seat? Honorable Mhauli.
Mhlauli.
Mhlauli.
Thank you. This is Mhauli. I rise, Madam Chair, on Rule 68, which speaks to relevance and repetition. The speaker on the floor is not debating SONA, which is completely irrelevant to what the topic of discussion today is. Thank you.
Honorable members, once again, I want to make this appeal. Can you please avoid drowning the speakers or attempting to make a dialogue when the speaker is on the floor? Can we please be orderly? Honorable Mohaule, your point of order is not sustainable. Can we allow Honorable Shope to continue?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. We now know that the objectives and goals of the NTP Vision 2030 will not be achieved because the so-called Government of National Unity is directionless and does not have a common vision or does not have a vision at all. Honorable Chairperson, The South African Reserve Bank, through the Prudential Authority, is in the process of closing down Ithala Bank, which is the only bank in South Africa started by and controlled by black people and has been at the center of serving our people. There are available solutions within the state, including through massive investment by the Public Investments Corporation to rescue and keep Ithala Bank fully operational and give it a banking license in terms of the Act. But the DA-ANC alliance government is allowing Ithala to be closed down in order to create space for the white-owned banks, in particular First National Bank. The Prudential Authority of the South African Reserve Bank continue to ignore the many bank violations of Capitec Bank, swept under the carpet the very fact that there is banking conglomeration in RMB, FNB, Discovery and Green Road banks which are owned by the same people, yet it rushes to close down Ithala Bank. We want to assure the people of KwaZulu-Natal that when we take over the province of KwaZulu-Natal in particular, we will revive and strengthen Ithala Bank and restore it to its former glory and full operation. Meaningful economic participation by our people is not part of the NDP 2030 vision of the so-called GNU. Any self-respecting human being knows that South Africa will not achieve even half of the objectives and goals set in the NDP of the GNU because this GNU is full of self-contradictions and conflicts which will disrupt a clear development path to prosperity. The so-called GNU is nothing but a grand coalition of former liberators and historical but present oppressors. And the former liberators have joined the oppressors in the continued oppression of our people. While they travel in luxurious cars, the majority of the population's reality is one of catastrophic public transport that is akin to walking barefooted. This contradiction is starker in the light of the following. There is a widening fiscal gap in this country between the rich and the poor. It is now projected to exceed 5% of the GDP. B, there is a growing national debt expected to surpass 80% of the GDP by year 2026, a cause for concern. There is rising inflation and increased cost of living, forcing millions into deeper poverty as poor households are faced with disproportionate 11.3 increase in their food basket, pushing them deeper into poverty. South Africa remains the most unequal country in the world, with a Gini coefficient of 0.63. The inequality gap between the rich and the poor is growing wider every day. In 2024 alone, over 139,000 more people fell into the extreme poverty. Yet, despite previous commitments, the government has failed to introduce a basic income grant. The Social Relief of Distress, SRD grant, which provides critical relief to 8 million South Africans, remains uncertain and is likely to be ended in March this year. Informal settlements continue to grow, while state-funded housing projects still due to budget constraints that exist only on paper. Meanwhile, the rail system, a potential lifeline for working-class South Africans, remains broken, forcing reliance on expensive and unsafe alternatives. Government's failure to spend allocated funds is not just mismanagement. It is an active betrayal of our people. Over 90% of the municipalities are financially unsustainable and unable to meet their service delivery obligations. Water shortages and sewer spills have become a daily reality in many communities. Load shedding, now called load reduction, continues to cripple small businesses and the households of the poor, making economic recovery impossible. We as Umkhonto weSizwe are fully aware that instead of giving land to our people, the current government is cooperating with the white capitalist establishment to take away the land and natural resources of our people. Our Commander General, President Zuma, has had several engagements with Amakhosi from Richards Bay areas in Umhlathuze municipality in King Cetshwayo district of the KZN province. We are fully aware that the authorities, including the highest office in South Africa and the highest office in South African Police Service, have been threatening and intimidating Amakhosi from the area, intimidating them to accept a deal which will pillage and loot the natural resources and endowments of our people in the area. We take this opportunity to send a strong warning to the Richards Bay minerals owned by BHP Billiton and Rio Tinto that we as Umkhonto weSizwe, representing the majority of the people in Umhlathuze municipality, majority in King Cetshwayo district, and certainly a decisive majority of the people of KwaZulu-Natal province, we will not allow Rio Tinto and BHP Billiton to pillage and loot our natural resources. We will not allow that. In the next few weeks, we as members of Umkhonto weSizwe and the KZN members of the provincial legislature will be visiting Umhlathuze municipality in King Cetshwayo district of KwaZulu-Natal province to solidify our program and campaign against Rio Tinto and BHP Billiton. We will do that. We as Umkhonto weSizwe, we stand here on behalf of the people of South Africa, traditional and religious leaders, the unemployed millions of our people, the underpaid and exploited workers, the black professionals who suffer racist treatment in the workplace, the farm workers, and all the people who need a better future for our country, and state that Umkhonto weSizwe is the real alternative to current so-called government of national unity, which is nothing but an alliance between the DA and the African National Congress. The so-called government of national unity has exposed...
Honourable member, your time is up. Please take your seat.
No, how was... Okay.
Honourable members, please take your seat. I'm now calling the Minister of Agriculture, Honourable Steenhuisen.
Madam Speaker, House Chairperson, Chairperson of the NCOP, Mr. President, honourable members. South Africa is in a crisis. For 10 years, our population has grown faster than our economy, making us poorer. We have the highest unemployment rate on earth, and that has now been the case for decades. Violent crime still destroys the lives and livelihoods of our people at a terrible rate. 70 of our fellow countrymen and women are murdered every single day. Our education outcomes continue to steal our children's futures, and positive progress is slow. 8 months ago, the Democratic Alliance entered the Government of National Unity for 2 reasons. First, to prevent the MK from getting their hands back on the levers of power, where they would be able to loot another 4.9 trillion rand of our GDP and plunge our country into another 9 wasted years, where it wouldn't be the school children, it wouldn't be the poor that benefit, it would have been the same old elite that ate out of the trough of the public purse and have led our country to where it sits today. But we also joined the Government of National Unity. We joined the Government of National Unity so that we could play our part in helping to turn South Africa around. To turn the tide.
Honorable Steenhuisen, please take your seat. Honorable members, for the last time, once again, I'm pleading with you. Don't drown the speaker on the floor. Over to you, Honorable Steenhuisen.
We joined the Government of National Unity to turn our country around so we can finally turn our back on the looting, the corruption and maladministration that typified the 9 wasted years under President Jacob Zuma. But we also joined to be part of the growth and jobs agenda and to make sure that we confront the crises that face us. The truth is, we've persisted for far too long with policies that fail South Africa. State monopolies being bailed out over and over again. Excessive regulation that makes it harder for businesses to grow. Empowerment policies that benefited the few and not the many. And a tariff regime that pushes up prices with no benefit, even to the companies that those tariffs are meant to protect. And underpinning that, a thoroughgoing lack of accountability, where those responsible can sit in the gallery of Parliament watching our proceedings instead of behind bars where they belong. Worse still, in the face of this crisis, we've yet to respond with the urgency and determination to make a clean break from the past and to set forth boldly on a new path of success. And now, having made ourselves weak over those 9 wasted years, we confront a new threat. US tariff barriers, potential threat of AGOA, and possibly even sanctions by a regime driven by an administration that will put America's interests ahead of ours. And make no mistake about that. And so what do? When a country faces a crisis, it needs to unite and navigate the threat. And that is what we must do now. And the GNU must practice what it preaches. And that is why, in a variety of portfolios, we've taken a decision to focus like a laser beam on growth and jobs. And that was what the President set out in the SONA. I was in Ceres yesterday to mark the first shipment of South African apples to Thailand in 16 years. Just one example of how this government is opening up new markets for our agricultural products. Solly Malatsi's ministers on a mission to get fast, reliable broadband into the hands of millions of people in rural areas. Dr. Schreiber opening South Africa to skills and to tourists. Minister McPherson fast-forwarding infrastructure projects. Honourable Garube, Minister Garube, focusing on long-term education excellence through a strategic reorientation. And Minister George ensuring regulations to enable sustainable growth. We need to approach our trading partners now and seek to
Honourable
lower...
Steenhuisen, please take your seat. Honourable member.
Will John Steenhuisen take a question?
Honourable Steenhuisen, can you take a question?
No, I wasted 9 years listening to this stuff in the House
He doesn't
under
want
his
to
previous
take a
leader.
question. Please sit down, member. You can proceed, Honourable Steenhuisen.
We must turbocharge Operation Vulindlela. We must take up the World Bank's offer of a government-wide regulatory review. We must bring down the costs of living for our consumers. We must allow equity alternatives to ownership requirements in every sector. And we must make the bold decisions that are required to get our country moving forward. But there's one more thing we must do. There's one more thing we must do. And that is remember that South Africa cannot succeed unless everybody in South Africa succeeds, and I mean everybody, no exceptions. And that means we must redress the wrongs of the past, but we must do so in a way that grows employment and grows our economy. It makes no sense, for instance, that 30 years of transformation has occurred alongside a 50% increase in unemployment. We cannot redress the past by compromising the present or sacrificing the future. We must ensure that we respect cultural and language rights, which exist precisely because South Africa is a diverse and divided country. And we must ensure that every single South African feels safe in their homes and at their place of work. And that includes our farmers and farm workers. The dismantling of the rural safety units was a catastrophic mistake, and it opened the door to a collapse of rural policing and the targeting of our farmers and farm workers of all races by violent criminals and syndicates. Just this weekend, I was in Tabanchu, in Vicksburg, and other parts of the Free State, with commercial farmers and small-scale black farmers, to listen to their heartbreaking stories about how they fear for their families' lives, and they are preyed upon almost monthly by syndicates of stock thieves who destroy their opportunity to grow their businesses. Cases get opened but are never investigated. They know who is responsible but cannot secure arrests or convictions. This situation cannot go unaddressed. And as a result, in my capacity as Minister of Agriculture, I'm announcing that we're going to work with the sector to design a comprehensive plan to combat farm murders, stock theft, and improve rural safety. I look forward to collaborating with the Minister of Police and the entire Justice and Security cluster to bring an end to the scourge once and for all. Madam Speaker, we live in times of both great hope but also great fear. It is time for us as leaders, the people of this House, to lead by example. We should seek to unite, not to divide. We should seek to build, Mr. President, not to break. We should choose to reflect the best of ourselves and banish the worst. Madam Speaker, we must recognize the moment that we find ourselves in for what it is, a moment of great danger for the people of South Africa. For if they fall prey to the historic revisionism that we've just heard from the Honourable the Leader of the Opposition, they could lull themselves into some complacency that somehow things were better when those policies and persons were in charge. Nobody took more advantage of the people of South Africa than the leader of Umkhonto we Sizwe, even using their money to build his own house while people lived in poverty. And we must reject the revisionism, because had we had that 4.9 trillion rand that was stolen under Mr. Zuma, we would have schools that were working, clinics that were functioning, police and nurses on the streets, and South Africa would be a better place. But never you mind, Mr. President. It's up to us now to pick up the baton and to take this country forward. But it means that we need to do whatever we can to turn the economy around. The time for a break with failed policies is now. The time for a new approach
Honourable
is
Minister,
now.
your time is up.
Now is the
You
time.
can take your seat.
Thank you.
Thank you, honourable members. Please take your seats. I'm now calling the next speaker, Honourable Malema.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the NCOP. We want to make it very clear that we should not be confused with a generation of cowards who can be bullied by imperial forces and power-hungry individuals intoxicated by the wealth of apartheid. The United States of America has bullied nations before and imposed senseless and arbitrary sanctions and threatened wars. But we are a different generation. We are a generation of economic freedom fighters and will not be bullied, Mr. President. We agree with you, President, that we should not be bullied. We stand on the shoulders of the giants who confronted the establishment with their very lives, and we are willing to follow in their footsteps. We are not cowards, and they must not try us. Chair, President Cyril Ramaphosa stood before a joint sitting of the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces on Thursday last week, addressing South Africans and the world to deliver his 8th State of the Nation address. Yet he spoke as if it were his first ever SONA. There was no sense of accountability, no meaningful reporting, and no acknowledgement of the economic crisis facing our people. The President did not tell us what happened to the National Development Plan. He did not say whether it is still the guiding policy of South Africa, nor did he acknowledge that the country has been governed without any clear, practical and guiding policy. Today, we have the medium-term development plan, but its direction and impact remain unclear, just another failed NDP. In reality, the neoliberal right-wing coalition has no credible economic plan. There is no clear strategy to create jobs while more than 12 million people remain unemployed. The economy is stagnant, and these are undeniable facts. We are facing a crisis as a nation. The crisis of high food prices, the crisis of unaffordable transport costs, the crisis of soaring petrol prices, the crisis of gender-based violence and femicide, and the collapse of the National Gender-Based Violence Command Center without an explanation. The crisis of water shortage in Mdntv, Sekhukhune, and many other parts of Gauteng, it's a serious crisis. The crisis of inadequate housing in Alexander, Umlazi, and Khayelitsha. The crisis of collapsed municipalities that lack the capacity to deliver basic services. These are the crises the President inherited when he was elected President of the Republic of South Africa on 15 February 2018. In 2018, you said you will focus on rebuilding, yet things only got worse for our people. In 2019, you said to Mamina, the nation sent you, but to this day, we don't know what you went and did after you were too much. It was in 2019 when you stood before South Africa after asking us to send you, and you promised the nation speed trains and a smart city. You asked us to imagine a country where bullet trains pass through Johannesburg as they travel from here to Musina, and they stop in Buffalo City on their way from eThekwini back here in Cape Town. You said to us, the time has arrived to build a new smart city founded on the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution. We sent you to fulfill these dreams of yours, and 6 years later, you have not returned with a speed train or a smart city, and your term of office is slowly nearing an end. You said 2020 will be the year of tackling state capture and ensuring accountability. Yet not a single person has been arrested despite the 1 billion spent on the Zondo Commission report. In 2021, you declared it the year of recovery. Yet South Africa's economy deteriorated further, with economic growth falling below 1%, except for the brief rebound following the reopening of the COVID-19, which collapsed almost immediately. In 2022, you claimed you will address governance failures, yet corruption became one of the biggest issues under your leadership. And that corruption has found its way now into the judiciary. We never had crisis of corruption in the judiciary. It only started with you when you sealed the CR17 documents in court. We listened to you in 2023 when you called on the nation to work together, yet it was your own political party, the Former Liberation Movement, that continued to deploy incompetent comrades to municipalities, boards of state-owned enterprises, provincial departments, and national government. And when you tried to tell us the story of Tintswalo in 2024, we told you right there and then that you were talking about a Tintswalo who does not exist. The real Tintswalo was born in a shack, raped at the age of 6, dropped out of school before reaching grade 7, and was murdered while looking for a job. That's the Tintswalo we know. And now, this year, you tell us that you will not be bullied. We agree with you that we must not be bullied, but you fail to tell us what you are going to do about it. It is not enough to simply say you will not be bullied. You must tell us what action you will take. When you respond on Thursday, we expect you to provide real, detailed response to Donald Trump. But we know that the 940 billion infrastructure plan is yet another empty promise. We know that 375 billion allocated to SOEs, which still do not have a clear reindustrialization strategy, is a waste of money. We know that the corporate approach and strategy for Transnet, the unbundling of Eskom, and the so-called modernization of ports and airports are all just privatization in disguise. President, we know that blended finance will become another looting scheme when students here at CPUT are sleeping outside at this very moment due to lack of housing. But as economic freedom fighters, we have adopted the theme of the year of picket lines. We are going back to the streets, we are reclaiming our identity, and we want to reunite with our people. We'll go to the streets to demand water for our people, to demand the speedy allocation of housing, to demand the eradication of pit toilets, and to fight for service delivery. We are taking our picket lines to the National Treasury and the Reserve Bank to demand nationalization and the transformation of the economy. We will picket outside correctional facilities to demand an end to overcrowding and syndicates within prison that control crime in the outside world. And we will demand the expulsion of private companies such as G4S, which has links to Israel and runs a prison in Mangaung. We continue to stand with the people of Palestine who remain under siege. We agree as the National Assembly that the Israeli embassy must be closed. Yet their flag continues to fly in our country, while Palestinians are threatened with mass deportation to foreign lands. We support the government's case in the International Court of Justice, and we must remain resolute in the face of sanctions and sponsored attacks. And importantly, we must oppose the colonization of Gaza by the USA. Justice and freedom for Palestine one day the people of Palestine will know the true meaning of freedom. Mr. President, we are not being attacked by Trump administration because you did anything wrong. They are attacking us because of our stand on Israel. They are attacking us because of the action the government has taken to ICJ. And we are saying to you, do not be misled by people who are saying you are under siege because of expropriation, which is meaningless act. That act does not say anything, and they all understand that language. They are using it to fight our case against Israel. And when you say they cannot bully us, you must start by removing the Israeli embassy to show them that will not be bullied. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Order. Honorable the Minister of Small and Medium Enterprises. Order, honorable members. Honorable members of the EFF, can you please take your seats? Order, honorable members. Order. We do appreciate that members, for whatever reason, they would like to applaud their speakers, their leaders. However, we need to be considerate when a speaker has been called on the podium, so that in future we do not find ourselves having to raise points of order when others do the same. I really appeal that we desist from doing so henceforth. Minister.
Honorable Speaker, last week His Excellency President Ramaphosa stressed that our most urgent task is to grow the economy above 3% so that we can build a dynamic and thriving economy that creates opportunities for the historically marginalized and generates new jobs. The national democratic society that we envision must be founded on a dynamic and inclusive economy that reflects the country's natural endowments and the innovation of its people. It must harness cutting-edge technology, labor-absorbing industrial development, a thriving small businesses and cooperative sector, and efficient production and management systems to promote national prosperity. This requires unlocking the full potential of all citizens, dismantling racial and gender-based barriers to ownership, and ensuring equitable access to economic opportunities. Mr. President, I would like to say up front that the issues of economic transformation in a comprehensive sense should be at the heart of the national dialogue, which government will convene soon. There is no way we can achieve the national consensus with an economy that excludes the majority. The social contract that we want to craft should contribute towards reconstructing our economy to achieve more growth, jobs, and inclusion. This is more urgent for communities in the township and rural areas, especially for youth and women. Our G20 theme of fostering solidarity, equality, and sustainable development is in line with our goals of achieving inclusive and sustainable development. It also reflects our deepest values to promote international cooperation, interdependence, and collaboration, something we need desperately in the times we live in. We have cultivated these values domestically in how we govern, how we forge consensus with varied stakeholders, and how we work together to meet difficult socio-economic challenges. With our leadership at the G20, the future looks most promising, honorable members. I would like to remind all of us of the Freedom Charter, which envisioned a country of brothers and sisters, black and white, living in a world where they all thrive economically and live in peace. Honorable Speaker, the President outlined 5 main ways to get to our 3% growth challenges that we have set for the nation through the SONA. There are several ways to get significantly more people economically active. Through the industrial policy that is being finalized by Minister Dau, we will enhance our efforts to support employment-intensive industrialization, public employment initiatives, especially those with pathways to upskilling and sustainable livelihoods. We are placing MSMEs at the center. We draw valuable lessons from the experience of other developing countries across the world. We welcome the announcement that over the next 3 years, this administration will spend 940 billion rands on infrastructure projects. We eagerly await the finalization of the regulations under the Public Procurement Act that will drive transformation, foster the emergence of new players in our economy, and enable effective participation of small enterprises. To ensure increased access to funding, the President announced the Innovation Fund and the Transformation Fund, which is worth 20 billion rands a year over the next 5 years. These funds will act as a catalyst to attract other funds and disperse more funding support to MSMEs. In the 6th administration, we dispersed over 4.1 billion on business development support, over 9.4 billion rands on financial support. The National Empowerment Fund has dispersed over 10 billion rands. To support innovation, we have dispersed over 1 billion rands through the Department of Science and Innovation. We are convinced that working with DTIC through the Transformation Fund, we will double these efforts in the coming financial year. Our partnership with the JSE is reaping results, with 15 high-potential CEDA-supported MSMEs that have increased their revenue by 22% and an additional 122 million rands that they pocketed. We continue to provide a range of instruments on wholesale finance, direct loans, blended finance, working capital and grants to various categories of the MSMEs and cooperatives. Some of those that we offer, we do so in partnership with financial institutions like the banks, where our credit guarantee and supplier guarantee products are working very well, leveraging R6.25 in financing for every rand that we guarantee. Our efforts on digitalizing systems at CIFA will accelerate turnaround times and improve accountability to applicants. Our Township and Rural Enterprise Program applications will now be processed within 7 days and the purchase order financing in 4 days. Through the small enterprise ecosystem, we have agreed on a stretch target of creating 1 million MSMEs by 2030, new MSMEs, and this will give us a total of 3.7 million jobs that our country so needs. We're currently undertaking industry engagements across various sectors to better understand trade and market demand pathways. Accordingly, we have engaged the automotive, wine and fishing industries, while in the coming weeks we'll be extending these engagements to the agricultural sector, the build industry, energy, petroleum and oil, sport and arts industries, amongst others. We have accordingly looked at the skills gaps within the MSME ecosystem, and to this end, we'll be engaging the deans of commerce across the country to ensure that their curriculum respond effectively. This will give a clearer indication of the sectors and industries where there is most potential for MSME growth. Honorable members, our people in the rural and townships have been complaining about being excluded in their economy. We are finalizing the township economy and rural development plan, which will be presented to Cabinet, and in it will be ensuring that we build infrastructure for businesses in the townships. For us, land redistribution is the fundamental pillar of this transformation that we're talking about. Sustainable land reform must be supported by policies that equip small-scale and emerging farmers with the resources and skills needed for success. Economic transformation also requires a competitive and efficient market, free from the monopolistic constraints of colonial capitalism. For these goals to be achieved, the state must play a strategic role, including through directing resources towards boosting the township and rural economies. It is in line with this argument that we support the signed Land Expropriation Act and the Transformation Fund that the President has announced. On freedom and democracy that works for the majority of South Africans and therefore deliver on the aspirations of the Freedom Charter as detailed in our strategy and tactics. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Honourable Shabisa.
His Excellency, the President, honorable members and honorable Speaker, the IFP entered the 2024 elections on a mission to rebuild South Africa. we knew that 2024 will be the most crucial elections since the dawn of democracy. We entered the 2024 elections determined to put South Africa first and to bring integrity back to government. And at the heart of this vision is the government that works for its people. The GNU must therefore be applauded, for it is committed to building a capable, ethical, and developmental state comprising of ethical, skilled, and properly qualified public servants. Honorable President, I agree with you. Municipalities must work. Basic services must be delivered and delivered efficiently. At the heart of the crisis is the resources constraint of many municipalities. The current funding model for local government is unsustainable and perpetuates inequality between the rich and the poor. The new funding model is a must, one that considers each municipality's unique needs and challenges and provide a more equitable distribution of resources. Honorable President, you called for an updated white paper on local government. COGTA is already leading the reform of the 1998 white paper. Indeed, the White Paper Political Oversight Committee is already meeting next week. This presents an opportunity to rethink the funding model for municipalities. In March 2026, we will table in Cabinet an updated white paper on local government that will be responsive to the real challenges and propose solutions to make the local government work. Honorable President, the GNU will ensure that the commitments you made to the nation do not become empty promises, but a lived reality. We are encouraged that during SONA, you acknowledge the constructive and important role that traditional leaders can play in improving services to our people. For decades, the IFP has been proclaiming the critical role of traditional leaders in promoting development and stability in our communities. Hey, there's something which is disturbing here.
I'm sorry, can the service officers just check what's disturbing the minister?
Yeah, and I've removed it, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you for assisting.
We know the importance of partnering with traditional leaders to deliver services and promote development. Therefore, Honorable President, the traditional leaders must be properly supported and capacitated. The focus on new infrastructure development is also welcome, but it must be accompanied by maintaining and upgrading the existing infrastructure. To rebuild South Africa, we need to rebuild our education system, rebuild our healthcare system, and rebuild our economy. The IFP fully supports the principle of universal access to healthcare. Our concern, Honorable President, is the feasibility and affordability of the NHI in its current form. The government, therefore, must prioritize strengthening the existing public healthcare system, which is plagued by inefficiencies and shortages of equipment and medical personnel. The IFP proposes a more incremental approach to implementing the NHI, prioritizing strengthening the existing healthcare system and piloting new models of care. We also emphasize the need for greater transparency and accountability in managing NHI funds to arrest corruption and ensure that resources are properly used. We welcome the government's commitment to creating jobs and stimulating economic growth. We look forward to the implementation of the medium-term development plan, particularly in relation to the 3 strategic priorities of driving inclusive growth and job creation, reducing poverty, and tackling the high cost of living. Honorable Speaker, the unfolding drama and the international diplomatic fallout around the Expropriation Act is deeply concerning. We condemn those who spread misinformation and work against our collective national interest to rebuild South Africa. Together with the nation, Honorable Speaker, I honor our fallen soldiers who bravely fought for peace in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Their selfless sacrifice will never be forgotten. The IFP supports initiatives to restore peace across the continent, knowing that peace and stability are essential for economic development, social justice, and human dignity. Abrupt withdrawal will not be in the interest of the continent. South Africa's presidency of the G20 is a significant milestone for Africa. As a nation, we must showcase our talents, abilities, and potential to unlock the economic opportunities that will enable us to address pressing domestic challenges. Let me reiterate the IFP's resolute support of the GNU and the GPUs and their vision of healing wounds of the past while working for a brighter future for all of us. Honorable President, on behalf of the IFP, I want to applaud and urge your continued support, together with the Minister of Finance, to the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Honorable A.T. Ntuli, in the fight against the liquidation of Ithala Bank. Ithala Bank remains the legacy of the late Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi and the economic backbone and pride of the African people, individuals, and business people. On 24 February will be a day of great march in KwaZulu-Natal, as we will take the fight to the street to fight against the liquidation of Ithala Bank. Honorable President, the IFP will be counted amongst the nation builders, not the breakers, the doers, not just the dreamers, the workers, not just the armchair critics. We stand ready to rebuild South Africa. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I would now like to call upon the Honorable Premier of the Northwest.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Chairperson of the NCOP, His Excellency President Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, members of the National Assembly, and permanent members to the NCOP, Bagaetsho dumelang. Honorable Speaker, allow me to take this opportunity to pass my sincere condolences to the family of Lance Bombardier Itumeleng McDonald Moreo of the Bate village in Mahikeng, who is amongst the 14 members of the South African National Defence Force who were killed in the Eastern DRC. We join the cries of many of our people in the country and the rest of the continent to demand that the African Union not relent in the 2063 commitment to silence the guns on our beloved continent. Honorable members, as we mark the 70th anniversary of the adoption of the Freedom Charter, we need to remind ourselves of the objectives we set ourselves in the National Development Plan. We said we want to build a more prosperous country that is progressively eradicating poverty and inequality over time. We also said we want to eliminate the effects of apartheid and colonial discrimination that has scarred our society in order to lay the basis for greater social cohesion, unity, and opportunity. Honorable President, the Northwest is arguably the richest province in South Africa, yet has the highest unemployment rate in the country. Experts and academics, they call it a paradox of the plenty. Therefore, something drastic needs to be done to turn the tide against this socio-economic conundrum. Honorable President, we welcome the process to review of the white paper on local government. The Northwest Executive Council is the first to be consulted and will be submitting our proposals in due course. It is our wish that this process, President, not to be rushed, but to allow for a broad and extensive relook into our governance model and design. This will enable us to learn from the mistakes of local government since its inception. The Northwest Province supports the position adopted by SALGA that the funding model of local government be prioritized and run parallel with the white paper review process. We are also of the view, President, that a broader conversation is needed to include overall public sector funding review, which includes equitable funding to provinces. A holistic funding review process should, in our view, include an in-depth scrutiny of the division of revenue model to determine whether its current form is it assisting poor provinces to address the socio-economic needs of the people. The Northwest is of the firm view that the current equitable share allocation model should be centered on addressing developmental challenges confronting provinces based on their needs and developmental agenda and not the population. This should be done, President, however, without compromising the unitary nature of our fiscal framework. Honorable Speaker, we are, however, hard at work to improve the functionality and the service delivery performance of our local municipalities through the local government turnaround strategy. We are collaborating, Madam Speaker, with the National Treasury through mandatory interventions to assist municipalities with financial recovery plans, governance, and skills audit. There is progress, Madam Speaker, but still a lot has to be done. During the state of local government in the North Province, we agreed that as we do our analysis, we still have to improve the manner in which we are doing our intervention. Honorable Speaker, we have increased the tempo in the province of what is called Accelerated Service Delivery Program. We call it Tuntsale Road, now reloaded. We are prioritizing our rural communities. This has given us a chance, Madam Speaker, to strengthen and solidify our relations with our traditional leaders by prioritizing water, sanitation, and road infrastructure projects in those rural communities. Close to 150 million rand has been set aside to implement water and sanitation projects in villages like Budibe, Ramosadi, Signal Hill, Dinokana, and Lobate, among others. we put also aside 485 million rand committed to do a construction of a pipeline from Bloemhof Dam to Mamusa local municipality. This project is due to be completed in June this year and will alleviate water provisioning challenges in the Swaziland and the surrounding areas. In November last year, we handed over 96 million rand bulk water and reticulation plant at Rika Karatlile, near Stella in the Naledi local municipalities. Several projects of similar kind are being implemented in various parts of the province. Honorable Speaker, the Northwest is on the move. We have laid the foundation for most of the ambitious plans for the future of the province. We have recently completed the provincial growth and developmental strategy, and it will be implemented in full swing in the 25-26 financial year. The strategy is beginning to yield results. In December last year, we opened a newly refurbished 200 million gold processing plant in Orkney, in the city of Matosani local municipality. This forms part of a 2 billion investment by the China Africa Precious Metals, which created about 4,000 jobs in that municipality. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, we recently met the newly appointed Group Chief Executive Officer of Harmony Gold, Mr. Bayer Snell, and his group executive on the sideline of Africa Mining Industry. The mining company has invested over 7 billion rand at its operation in the city of Matosani local municipality, preserving over 6,000 jobs and extending the lifespan of a mine by more than 15 years. Several more investment projects are in the pipeline. Following our investment conferences we held last year, including the past 2 weeks, I handed over 2 newly built houses to a 70-year-old Sarah Khagudi as one of the beneficiaries in Mamusa local municipality. This forms part of our 3,000 housing units planned for the financial year, with a total of 2,000 units delivered to beneficiaries in the third quarter. Madam Speaker, we also constructed 4 strategic roads projects.
Honorable Premier, I'm sorry, your time is up.
Okay, thank you very much. You are done.
I noted that there are a lot of members who have made a pass into the local government sphere, and as he was speaking about the local government strategy on both sides of the House, I saw people nodding or listening carefully. Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Nyalo ngitawucela lilunga lelihloniphekile make Mathophe atokhuluma nathi kulendlu lunga lelihloniphekile. Ningamphazamisi kakhulu nina bekunene uyaqala nje ukukhuluma kulendlu. Ngeje naye ke anganisukeli ukude ningamcali. Niphathane kahle nje nonke.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable President, a heartfelt wish that the black-owned businesses include colored and Indian South Africans as well, because history have learned that these groups were marginalized and had very little or no sharing in benefiting from funds. Can we please guard against corruption to prevent another state capture saga? Head of State, I am very glad to hear that PRASA will extend its network. But can you please address those who manage our public transport not to neglect our assets and left it in ruins? It is an eyesore to drive every day past the Cape Town station and to see so many train compartments in ruin. Mr. President, we will keep you to account on the promises you bring We will keep you to account on the promise you bring rail, roads and ports to international standards. Mr. President, you mentioned that you want South Africa to be a global leader in commercial cultivation of hemp and cannabis. Can I ask that of the land you intend to expropriate, that you consider using this land to accommodate these commodities and upskill unemployed youth and women to proudly manage these projects? Tlhokomela setjhaba sa heso, Mr. President. And Mr. President, I clearly heard you say that we will not be bullied. And we all know that you were...
Honourable Member, your time is up. Ungqongqoshe we-Correctional Services siyacela ze ngaphambili umnumzana uGrunewald.